Your blades need work. Let me be of you. The katana of Clan Sakai. An exquisite weapon.
You recognize it on sight?
For me, every blade is unique. As recognizable as a person. Lord Sakai, bring the materials I need, and I would be honored to improve such a fine sword. Your blade is ready. Your sword arm protects us all, my lord.
Let me go.
Heard the Mongols are taking blacksmiths into their camps and forcing them to make weapons.
I'd rather die than craft a blade for those bastards.
You say that now.
You'd make weapons to kill our people?
No, I would do whatever it takes to keep my family safe.
So would I.
Someone help me!
Sora, come! That's my Sora.
My lord! You made it! I came straight here. Stayed off the roads. Just like you said, Lord Sakai.
I'm glad you got here safely. How is your little one holding up?
He's braver than his father. People didn't believe it when I told them a samurai sent us here.
Take care of yourself. And the little one.
The people here don't have much to offer. But we'll do everything we can to help. See that? I told you. There's always hope.
I can't take anymore!
Has to be him. Come on! Show me your skill! End of it! 파킹하라고. 빨리 나와서 나와서.
The evening welcomes us, my lord.
My brother wanted to be a samurai, Lord Sakai. He built a bamboo training stand, spent a whole winter practicing on it.
Bamboo cutting. An excellent way to become a better swordsman. Perhaps I can join your brother in practice.
Sadly, he died of fever a few years ago. But every time I see a stand beneath its flag, I think of him.
And now, so will I. Thank you. Take care.
Good day, my lord.
We should run. Find a better place to hide.
Samurai!
What happened to you?
There's a merchant working with the Mongols. They gave him an iron mark. We tried to take it from him, but he had too many guards.
This iron mark must be worth a lot to risk your lives for it.
Whoever carries it is free to travel the roads without fear of being stopped by Mongols.
I could find a use for that.
You're welcome to it. We had to flee, but the merchant's cart is still up the road.
I'll look for this iron mark. Stay here and tend to your wounds.
Be careful. The Mongols will come looking for their men.
That must be the merchant's cart. Mongols. They fought the men I spoke with. No sign of the merchant. The iron mark isn't here.
Явчаач гэрхтээ булхамжтай.
The Mongols may be searching for the men I met. I better warn them. Let's go.
Let's go.
遅かった。お侍、こちらへ。 通行証を持ったアキュードを助けてください。実は弟なんです。なんだと？通行証を奪おうとしたのも全て家名のためでした。猛虎に加担したのであれば許してはおけぬ。そんないいやつなんです。どうか。無事かは分からぬが探してみよう。お願いします。兵は後を残しておるはずだ。あっちか。脇にそれた。アキュードはあの中におるはず。
Тэнд нэг юм хөдөлсөн. Явц тустай. Хөөе. Армо. Зэвсэг бэр. Энийг олцгоё. Ой, өнөөхийг чи хардаа. Эри, юу вэ? Олтерик! Идэг жиж тууслаа!
安全になるまで動きたくない。
Negumben. Яасан бэ?
まずは奴らを。
Бид орсноо Терик. Юу ч биш байж. Negumben. Ой! Эри, чи харгу. Алдчихлаа. Гэрийн байна. Олтерик! Идэг жиж тууслаа! Чадна! Хараг түчгэн тэр яаж ингэв? Ачуу талаас.
go. I think I've just managed to connect up a microphone. So, Krampus, if you're still watching, perhaps you could just let me know if you can hear me. It's a different process completely, streaming from a PlayStation. I actually quite like it because you have to focus on the game rather than being a bit more of an elaborate setup. But that said, obviously I've not been playing this for too long. I'm still working out the techniques, but it's not easy. You die a fair old amount, as you've seen. And let me see. So obviously stealth is the order of the game. Now there are, having said all that, there are techniques and things I've really got to get my head around. L1 right before taking damage, and then square or triangle to counter attack. So it's things like this that I'm not using these properly, and I need to. So L1 right before taking damage. Let's put that into practice. So at the moment I'm just sort of chopping at them, but there are parry and defense mechanisms and things that really you should be employing. Or I should say. But this is one of the reasons I'm not a massive fan of these kind of games where you've got to learn loads of different... See, that's said that. No, he's dead. Yeah, where you've got to learn loads of different key combinations, you know, button mashing combinations. That's not my thing. I really don't like that very much. I like it to be fairly simple. I do love stealth game, don't get me wrong. Stealth stuff like this I love, like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, where you can't just go rushing in. But having to remember a ton of button presses is annoying as hell. So, is he coming in? Are you coming in, my friend? Let me see. Nope, didn't work. I'm so so I can stealthily take him up the tree. So what I'm kind of doing, I've noticed, is running away. Your health doesn't heal all the time. What you have to do is, when you dispatch an enemy, oh, microphone's working, that's good. Yeah, so when you dispatch an enemy, it gives you resolve, which is those little yellow circles at the bottom left hand corner there. And once you've got enough resolve, you can convert that into health. So you can't just run away and hide, which is good. It's quite a good mechanic. But obviously, if you don't have a lot of health, and I've got 5 or 6 here, I'm giving that idiot with a great big club. So what I've been trying to do is run away, whoops, and hide for a bit, let them calm down, go looking for me, and then come and go from behind and taking them out, assassinate, as it were. And that's, kind of successful, but these guys are like they're a bit cannier than that. But yeah, things that I would like to do, like in Assassin's Creed, where you can sort of jump up on a roof and let them come, walk past, then jump down and take them out. None of that works. I would say it's a poor man's Assassin's Creed, if I'm honest. It's got some little graphical tricks that make it look really pretty, but in reality, there's not much more to it than that. And if you look at things like the middle ground, there's not a great deal of detail. It's no Horizon Zero Dawn, let's put it that way. They've not... And I'm a massive fan of Sucker Punch. I love the infamous series. Excuse me. Oh no, too many. Run away. So, yeah, it's... ARMOUR Chief. Sorry, mate, as you know, well, you may not know, but streaming from PlayStation. Or at least I haven't got comments and things set up. I should do that, actually. I should set that up so I can see it down the right hand side. It just reduces the field, the view that you get. So I just tend to put my phone on and keep an eye on things. But because I'm playing on my TV and my eyesight is getting rapidly worse, I can't wait to go to the opticians and get myself checked out. I've got these glasses on, so I have to keep flicking them off to read. So yeah, at the moment it's you can get bow and arrow and spears and all sorts of weaponry over time, but I'm at the very sort of beginning of the game. I don't have a lot of that, so I've got to just take these guys out. A bit of a hit and run exercise, otherwise I lose energy, life. So let's let them come. Here they come. Get close. Take them out one by one. That's the only way. Don't go running back into the battle, you idiot. Right, that's it. Run away for a bit more. Let them come to me. Yeah, so what I need to try and do is just separate them out, which they're not doing. Let's see, keep an eye on them. There's still quite a few. One at a time. Just take your time. Yeah, exactly. I just said that actually, Martin. It's I don't want to knock it because it's a good game and there's some really nice aspects to it, but quite honestly, I think they've been very careful in what they've shown you, the cutscenes and the photos, because there are certain points in the game that absolutely, a lot of the game looks stunning, but a lot of it's also achieved with HDR. I don't know how well that comes across actually on here, if at all. But there's just things that annoy me, like there's not much interaction in the water. I mean, you see here, I'm wandering along in this stream and you wouldn't know it. Whereas if I was doing this in Last of Us, or what else have I played recently? Death Stranding. The physics are there. It's working. Where are they all gone? Oh, there they are. Oh, good, they've calmed down. I can come up behind them, take them out. So yeah, there's a lot of it is fluff and flannel. If that makes any sense. There's some nice stuff in it, like the wind guides you to where you need to go next. There's little side missions and bits and pieces, but it kind of feels to me like say a poorer version of some of the more elaborate games that I've played recently. But a lot of people are raving about it. I do wonder how many of these other games they've played, mind you. If they've just come straight from Candy Crush, that'd be a great surprise, really. Come on in, mate. In you come. Thank you. Right. But there's progression, and you can build your character. Some people I know say, I haven't got very far, but a lot of people that have got further say that once you customise your character and you've sort of built up your abilities and weaponry and stuff, it gets quite fun. Not that it isn't fun. Wait, you said you could tell me that. Some of the bigger guys, like that dude with the club, they're difficult for me to take on head on at the moment with where my character is, so truthfully you do sort of need to use a bit of stealth at this point. Don't think they'll let me rescue him until I've taken them all out, which is annoying. Yeah, I don't know. I was a bit like this with The Last of Us 2, to be fair, and I didn't moan about it, but I just said I kind of wasn't feeling it in the same way that other people were. And then about halfway into the game, it completely flicked, and I loved it. Although, having said that, it's been a week since I played Last of Us 2, and I haven't thought to myself, oh god, I really wish I could go back to that game. So I think it was a one-off experience. I don't think... it's not like if you play Assassin's Creed Origins or Odyssey and you actually look forward to going back and playing it. And this one, at the moment, I'm kind of feeling the same. I feel at the moment I've sort of bottomed it out in terms of what it is, and I'm just hoping the same as I did with The Last of Us, that it kicks in at some point and it's a get down, get down, get down. Yes! Got him. You need to do that with these big guys because they're way too powerful. Take them on front on, it's just not easy. Oh hello, I got to collect something from you. Supplies. Supplies, of course, is Japanese for... Hey, you didn't know that was coming, did you? That's not racist. Right, let's get down into these bushes. Whatever they are. Tickling sticks. Let me just have a quick look at chat here. What have we got? So, we're going to see a channel name change. Right? No, I'm not at all. In fact, if you look at my content, you'll see that I do tend to stream under just the title of Rokk. I mean, in this case, I don't have any branding on the screen at all because it's out on my PlayStation. And that will be... typically, if I do PC or PlayStation stuff, then I just do it as Rokk. But obviously, if I'm doing Stadia stuff, then I put the Stadia Rokks brand on it. But I don't tend to stream a lot of Stadia. I probably should do a lot more. I just don't... I love the platform, and I love what they're trying to do with it, and I love the audience that they're aiming it at. But I'm not necessarily... the kind of games I like to play are games that are quite realistic to look at. They're not repetitive, so they're not sports games or games where you just do the same thing over and over to try and get a higher score. I hate those kind of games. And they've got stories and progression, and they're kind of living movies. And there are games at the moment on Stadia like that, but I've played them, or I've played enough of them that I've moved on to some other games like Rage 2, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I've completed Breakpoint. Division 2, I'd progressed higher on my PlayStation than I have done on Stadia. So those games are there, and there's more to come. But other games like Wave Break, what's come out recently, Orcs, they're not my kind of game. That's no slant on the platform, because they have a massive part to play, specifically and importantly as far as the casual audience that I believe Google is at least currently aiming to satisfy are concerned. So this kind of a game is a game that I will come back to and play more, and therefore you're more likely to find me streaming it. Simple as that, really. Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. No, what this game, or Stadia, Marchief, it's just not got pace. Death Stranding has been for now. Yeah, it's a great game, but you see, I completed it on PlayStation, so I bought it really because I wanted to experience the higher level graphics, which I have done. So I'm not racing to get back to it, but it is an amazing game. I mean, it's one of my favourite games, and if you haven't played it before, I'm certainly not going to spoil it for you, but I'm excited for you that you're playing it on PC, because it actually, interestingly enough, I watched. I don't know if you've got a PlayStation, but I watched. Let's get my horse back and get out of here. Oh no, I've got to free that dude, haven't I? This is the trouble with talking, you see. I was saying this in my patrons exclusive video. I can't play and talk at the same time. I just end up running around. So the point I was making about Death Stranding is that what was the point I was making? Yeah, sorry, PlayStation. I watched a comparison of Death Stranding and PlayStation versions of... Sorry, PC and PlayStation versions of Death Stranding on Digital Foundry did a comparison like you did the other day between Shadow and GeForce Now Death Stranding. And you interestingly said, yeah, there's not much in it, and I agreed. I'm watching it back. I could see slight differences. There was slightly higher quality with Shadow, but I mean, again, it's difficult to know, isn't it? That's probably as much to do with compression. And optimization is the quality of the hardware, but the Digital Foundry comparison showed, there was very little difference between PlayStation and PC. It was just in where there was difference, it was in the wider screen, it was in the rendering at sort of distance, that kind of stuff. But you could play the pair of the games side by side, or you could certainly walk away and play it, and then come back, and you wouldn't necessarily feel that you know it was a huge difference. But it's just, it is an amazing game, and the story unfolds beautifully. I found it addictive. I played it over Christmas. Actually, I played it from about, I think it came out in October, November. I played it when it first came out on PlayStation, and it took me a couple of months. I've said this a couple of times, but I was at home anyway, recovering from what I think was COVID, or a COVID variety that led to pneumonia and pleurisy. So I was quite ill for a couple of months at home. So I played it during that period and absolutely fell in love with the game. And I think you do need to devote time to it, because it's it's like any game, isn't it? Really, you need to put the time in. So many people that I know play 10 minutes of a game. There's one guy I know. Actually, I was spoken to for a while. But he would literally, I knew him for about 4 years, because it was a PlayStation connection. And in those 4 years, I never knew, he bought games all the time, I never knew him to complete a game or get more than an hour or two into a game, ever. And yet, for me, if I buy a game, I want to complete it. There's no point buying it otherwise. Now then, what's going on here? Standoff. It's definitely, I mean, if you're into old Japanese movies and the Japanese culture and so on, then I think you've just got to wait for him to attack. You take it out of the parry. There you go. Yeah, if you... Hey, Martin, how are you, my friend? Thanks for joining. Yeah, so if you're into Japanese movies and Japanese culture, and I don't mean... Whoops, here they come. Let's get the heck out. Yeah, and I don't mean Nintendo, anime type stuff. I mean proper Japanese movies and culture. Then this is a love letter to that. I haven't been, but I am fascinated in history. Anywhere in the world, I love history. I love how social history, more importantly to me than kings and queens and battles. I love to know how people lived, how their lives differed from ours. And interestingly enough, the further east you go, the less we know as Western in our sort of understanding of history. So something like this is really interesting, because I've never seen it before. This has kind of got glimpses. And what I like, by the way, I hope this pauses the action while I go into the menu. But there's a lot of work that's gone into the all of the information. Reminds me of the effort that's gone into like the Star Wars Battlefront series. So some beautiful typography. Excuse me. Nice stylistically, graphically, it's really pretty. And so there's a lot of effort at this level. I think. I just feel that it's maybe lacking a little polish in terms of the physics. As I said, walking through water is awful. And there's a couple of sequences a little while ago. I mean, things like this are really cool. A couple of sequences recently where he's tracking a bear, and the bear prints are embedded in the mud and they're fresh. And so I'm looking down, expecting to see footprints, and there's nothing. It's almost like he's floating over the mud, and I just think, that wouldn't have taken a lot of effort, surely. And you see it in contemporary games like Horizon Zero Dawn, which isn't even that contemporary anymore, and The Last of Us 2, and you think, for me, that, I don't know, maybe it's the engine, maybe it's their engine, I don't know what they've used. I know I loved Infamous and the second Infamous, is it Infamous Second Son, and the DLCs as well. I think those games are way ahead of their time. So I don't know, you will see a heck of a lot of people saying this is an amazing game, and wow, I know Digital Foundry, I think in their review said, wow, Sucker Punch disappeared for a while. Maybe it wasn't them, actually, it might have been someone else. And then all of a sudden they come back with this out of the blue, and it was the same with Guerrilla Games and Horizon Zero Dawn. It wasn't them. I'm trying to think who it was said it. Was it Project Storm? Maybe. But as I said, a lot of it is superficial. Charm advantage. Ghost weapons deal 20% more damage. I haven't got any ghost weapons yet, I don't think. Some of it's superficial, not all of it. But there's, say, mechanics that they're just weird. They just don't quite work for me. The character animation as well. I think the fighting stuff's not so bad. But when he's just wandering along and you kind of walking, it sort of flicks to the left or the right rather than animates. The frames of the animation seem to be minimal. And one of the things that Digital Foundry pointed out with their analysis of PlayStation versus PC digital Death Stranding was the additional frames per second really showed off. Or was that you, Marchief? There's so many different things I watch. No, I think it was Digital Foundry, but they basically said you could see with the additional frames per second when they slowed right down the animation how much more detail there was in the animation of that character versus this guy who hasn't got. I mean, that's not so bad, but when I've had him walking, he sort of flicks around a bit and just doesn't feel to me like a natural animation. And here, so some footprints here, interestingly enough. Well, they weren't there in that scene with the bear, that's for sure. Although, yeah, interesting. Well, there you go. Take it back. Let's have a quick look at comments on my phone. Yeah, I'm the same. Marchiefs. I love long playing games, but I hate lots of dialogue. Yeah, I'm the same. And that's one of the downsides for me. One of the reasons that I only came to Assassin's Creed at Origin was that was one of those things. And also, I mean, there's any of those games where you progress by going and asking characters stuff. And then you have to go through like 3 or 4 different options. I just tend to keep pressing X. I just to speed things on. But there are people that absolutely love the story aspect. That guy who I mentioned just now that played every game he ever bought for half an hour then got rid of it, he loved the story. He loved all that stuff. It just bores me. Yeah, I would rather the effort was put more into the play with a good but simplistic story, and one that you don't need to read tons and tons of lore. I mean, there is some of that stuff here, to be fair. If I go to collections, for example, what's quite interesting is they have the Mongols, obviously an amazing, successful empire, and if you see the Mongolian people today, it's hard to imagine that was the case, because it just doesn't appear to have the remnants of that society anymore. But we know so little about them in Western society, yet the impact that they had on the East, and actually a massive swathe of the world. Did you know, for example, that Venice only exists because the Italians in that region were fleeing from the Mongols and then went out to live in the islands out in the water to get away from the Mongols. They went everywhere, these guys, and they were a brutal race. But this has got lots of stuff in that I didn't know. This sounds really interesting. Presuming arul is a staple of the Mongols' nomadic diet, made of curds, which is a sort of offshoot of making butter or cream, boiled in fresh milk. The resulting mixture is combined with sugar and fruits before being dried and sliced into various shapes and patterns. Actually sounds quite tasty. I mean, that was a staple of their diet, so it was high protein, high sugars. You can see it was that high energy food. That was like a breakfast bar. That was like knocking back one of those energy bars. So yeah, in facts like that I find interesting. Singing, yeah. So it's got a load of stuff like that, which is quite useful. But at least you can go and explore it at your own leisure, and it's not huge detail. It's a paragraph or two, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I have. I've completed No Man's Sky, another game I loved. And funny enough, I've tried. Bless them. They, I think it's really endearing as a developer how they felt so wrong. They felt that they'd sort of rip people off with how they'd sort of sold the game, and then went on to make, I think, something like £60 million. That they've forever and a day since they've been developing it to this amazing title at no extra cost. You could imagine them for the rest of their lives doing it. They made so much money, they don't need to do it for the cash. Whereas other cultures and countries wouldn't blink an eye. They'd be let's keep going. How much more money can we squeeze out of these idiots? It's just interesting, isn't it? Maybe that's us. Maybe that's just the British, all Europeans, full stop. But anyway. Yeah, completed it. I loved it. I've gone back to it since all the major updates, but I just can't invest the time in it again. And I think, if anything, I preferred it when it was in its simple form. But yeah, loved it. Really enjoyed it. A mysterious, massive exploration game. Loved it. I always thought I was halfway through, by the way, and then it went on forever. But there's so much more to it these days. And you can see here's a classic example of me not being able to talk and play at the same time. So I'm not a great game streamer. If you want to watch somebody purely for the game, you're better off not watching me. If you're quite happy listening to my rantings, though, my ramblings, then you're in the right place. I'm trying to get around that. I'm not going to do that, am I? I just need to take these guys one at a time. I'm not even sure that I'm supposed to be... Oops. I'm not even sure I'm supposed to be doing anything with these guys. I think I just randomly came across them. Let's look on the map. So where am I supposed to go? That's a side mission. Oh no, that's a main mission, but I'm keeping away from it at the moment because I want to finish this quest line that I've got here. Maybe I don't have anything selected. Maybe I ought to. So the Broken Blacksmith is an active tale. Meet Yuna at her friend's home in southern Atsamo. So where's that then? In the old map. That's no, it's not there. Southern. Oh, there it is. Right, I just need to get on my horse and get the heck down there then. Don't worry about these idiots. Oh. There I was thinking that the game paused. Let's get my horse. Yeah, see, even the animation of the horse I feel lacks. When you've... Come here. Where the heck are you off to, pal? What? Stop! When you've experienced the horses of Red Dead Redemption... Oh, come on. Of Red Dead Redemption 2 and The Last of Us 2, this guy just kind of feels a bit of a poor imitation, really. Looks like it's just you and me now, my chief. Yeah. Was he lying though? I know what you're saying, Jem. I mean, he was definitely overplaying. You know, I've forgotten the name of the term now. Crikey, what was it called? When it was essentially self-created itself, didn't he? Yeah. I mean, he was. You're right. Fair point. He over-egged it. You know what? I think I watched it when he was doing all that stuff. He just got caught up in the hype. I do it. You know. I think sometimes you oversell something, and then after, I'm sure he regretted it big time. Well, I tell you how much he regretted it. He regretted it to the tune of 60 million quid in revenue, and then since then they've literally developed the game and delivered the game for free. So he clearly had a conscience, and I think he was pushed forward by Sony. I think he got caught up in the moment. He oversold it. Oh, get out of it. But yeah, I can't. I've tried going back and I can't do it. I loved it the first time round. Yeah. Yeah, he just wasn't great at it, was he? What, this game, Marchie? Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know, what did I pay? 54 quid. I mean, I asked myself this morning. If I'd bought it on Stadia for the same amount of money, would I have handed it back within the 2 hours? And I'm mindful of how I not criticised, but when I played The Last of Us 2 for the first half of the game, I felt that it had been overhyped. And I'm not. I just hate hype. I hate it. I tend to come to anything, films, music, theatre, games, where something's been so hyped up that I come with really jaundiced views, and I need to, you know, and I guess it's just a thing. I don't like it, and so I'm always a little bit negative towards it. I much prefer to come to something fresh and think, wow, this is good. No one's even talking about this. But yeah, Jem, interesting you say that about the story. I've had a few people say that, particularly LGBT, and I get why. I think they came. I think the story comes from a good place and a good intent, but I understand for various reasons why a lot of people weren't happy with it. I understand that. You know, if indeed that's what you're referring to, not suggesting that you are, but I do know that that was an aspect of the game that a lot of people struggled with. But yeah, difficult one for me because I'm not part of that culture, and therefore I have maybe a different attitude towards it, or a lack of understanding and sensitivity towards it, maybe. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't struggle. What did I struggle with? Again, I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't played it, but I think I've said elsewhere. So I mean, if I've already transgressed on this one, but you know, there is one of the great things about the story is the fact that you get to play, you know, what you initially believe is the baddie, and then you get to play a big chunk of the game as that individual. And I found my sympathies actually switched toward that character, and actually in the end I wanted that character to succeed. And yeah, no worries. So, you know, I'm trying to do the same thing as well, Jem. So for me, I wanted that character to succeed, and I didn't feel, I mean, not that any character failed to succeed in the end, but I just felt that I didn't, having introduced me to that character and allowed me to understand their motivations and to feel like in some ways they had a better check on their rationality and emotion in the end, I kind of wanted that to progress. So yeah, I could have done without the final scene, I think, if that's makes any sense. And as I said, it's been a week or so since I played it, and I'm not missing it. I enjoyed it. It was an experience. It has definitely not had the same impact. I'm just reading your chat here. Big event that happens at the start. Just thinking what that was. Should have been at the end of the game. I'm with you now. Yep. And we shouldn't. Yeah. Oh, that's a really good idea. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That would have been good. Yeah, good shout. I'm not feeling the game as I was the first one, and I played the remastered version of The Last of Us, and I didn't feel it as much as I did the first time I played it then either. And of course, that's because so many games have come and gone that do as good a job. You know, I mean, is it Days Gone, which a lot of people compared to The Last of Us? I thought it was a brilliant game, and again, I ended up with quite an emotional attachment to the characters, as equal to The Last of Us, and more so than The Last of Us 2, I would say. But, you know, underplayed. I noticed just recently that Plague's Tale, which is Xbox only, has started to get... actually has, I think it's had sold over 1 million units, but it, you know, it hasn't got anywhere near the hype behind it that something like Last of Us 2 had, and yet it's an excellent game. Yeah, it broke ground, mate, didn't it? Let's be frank. The first one, you know, it literally opened up. I did I've got a little video kicking around on my channel that was an extract from a conversation. No, I don't want to stand up. I need to get on with the game. I know I'm yapping and I can't think and play at the same time. But I don't want to be fighting characters. Let me see where I've got to go here. What was I saying? Yeah, I did a little extract, a little chit chat about one of the things that I love about games in recent times is over the last decade we've seen games not afraid to make women hero characters, and even saying those words sounds wrong now because it's no longer even considered a thing. And until we get to a point where that's the same with different people, different colour, different nationalities, different cultures, different sexual persuasions, etc., until we get to that point, you know, we've got a long way to go. But it's heartening to know that at least it's happened, and you know, our games are no longer dominated in the main by male protagonists. I don't think I'm supposed to stop and kill these guys. I'm not going to just stop and kill stuff because I don't have the skills yet, the weaponry and so on. I just want to get the expand my character a bit so that I can progress my character a bit so that I can go back and do some of these things. Yeah, so, you know, The Last of Us 2 in some ways is good from my perspective because it starts to ask those questions and open that door. So it feels clumsy and awkward, and it's bound to feel like it could have been handled differently at this stage because it is clumsy and it is awkward, but it needs to happen as it felt clumsy and awkward when those games those years ago were brave enough to say we don't need to have some big, you know, buff jock as the hero. We can, and I'm not even talking about those that gave you the choice between male and female. I'm talking about those that it was a female lead, full stop. So, you know, that for me, cheers, my chief, have a good day, my friend. That for me is, I'm loving to see that, and it's the progression and the maturity of the industry as we move away from the 12-year-olds that play Fortnite and really don't have much of a handle on the way the world works, to grown-ups and adults and a generation, the current generation, that, let me just read this, because if I say yes and I get it wrong, you're about to start a new tale. Are you sure you want to proceed? Oh no, I want to save it for later. I don't, yeah, okay, sorry, but I really don't like to have lots of little stories or kicking around. Yeah, see, I need to get down to there in order to progress the story I'm in. Good to know I've got it saved though, so that's all good. But yeah, sorry, I was just saying that one of the I haven't done it for a little while, but I did do a lot of work with a local college and some work with a local university, just to a bit of mentoring really of students and stuff. And I was always super heartened by how tuned into the world this current generation, the last couple of generations, are, and compared to my age group and older. And it used to really wind me up when people would say, "Oh, kids today, they don't know, they're born, me, and all that stuff," because it was absolutely not my experiences at all. And I feel that we're seeing that now manifest itself in things like the games industry, where it is a far more it's just a completely more embracing and engaging and accepting culture than the one that I've grown up in. And there are still cultures at this day and age. I mean, the rap culture is hugely misogynistic, for example, and yet it dominates the music world. Therefore, it dominates a lot of the culture that we're all involved in, irrespective of what you think about hip-hop and music and so on. A lot of it is still misogynistic. A lot of it isn't, and it's changing, and it's evolving, and that's heartening, and I love to see that. But, for me, singling out any culture or any persuasion is tantamount to a power grab. It's kind of social bullying, and I absolutely despise bullies on any level. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, it's got nothing to do with this game. The guys are the main characters are male. And in some ways, I guess that's what I'm saying. It doesn't feel like it's a progressive game. It feels like it's got a few little tricks. It uses HDR really well. It uses lighting really well. You can, like this, obviously, it's got high contrast. That looks gorgeous. But the detail's not there. When you stand up and you look into a forest, I mean, they've done a reasonable job here. It's not a good example. But the detail drops off, and it almost looks like PUBG. It can get that bad. But they've done a good job on the foreground. I'm just reading your chat again. I was thinking this the other day. I feel like all Stadia published and developed games, probably part of Stadia Pro. Yeah, I thought that as well, Jem. I actually do think that will be the case, because I don't think they're doing them for commercial purposes. And by that I mean, if you look at Amazon, Amazon's oh look, it just got all bright in the game. Oh, that's nice. If you look at Amazon's recent output, both of which were obviously, one of them, Crucible's been brought back into beta and taken off offline, and New World has been put back. But both of those are essentially commercial games, whereas the stuff that stuff that Gem's doing, the stuff that Stadia's doing is it's only going to exist on Stadia, right? It's not being produced, it's not being developed, as far as we know, to be available on any other platform. So it makes sense that they are mic dropping titles that attract you to sign up to Pro. So that yeah, I totally agree. I think the same thing. I think that, but they've got to be something special, haven't they? In the meantime, they're working with the likes of Splash Damage and others to obviously do interim titles, and I'm really looking forward to. Is it Outcasters? Looks really cool. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So that the studios they're working with interim, their games those games will probably exist on other platforms as well. But the ones that they're developing solely for themselves, I think they're going to literally only exist, and that they will be part of a Pro. In fact, I've been amazed how many. It's almost like these days. I'm just wondering if I need to take these guys out. Where am I on my map? Oh, going the wrong way, and no, I'm miles from it. It's almost like every title that they announce that looks any good is going to be a Pro game. It's like, isn't somebody, I think 28 titles we could have claimed since the first since Stadia launched. 28 titles, which I've got every single one of them. You know, I mean, that's building up. If you look at, for example, what was a bear or a wolf or something here? If you look at Xbox Game Pass on PC Beta, which I've got, there's 100 games. Well, we're over a quarter of the way there already with Stadia. It's not going to be long before we can turn around and say, yeah, okay, there's 100 games on Xbox Game Pass. There's 100 games on Stadia Pro. You know, that's the same deal. And some of them are exclusives, and many of them are remastered or have exclusive Stadia features in them, which isn't the case with any of the games on Xbox Game Pass. Yeah, yeah, they're not. That's right. They're rotated out in Xbox Game Pass, aren't they? So yeah, there's advantages. But as I've said before, I think at this moment in time, they're getting their ducks in a row. We, the founders, were their we're unofficial beta testers in essence, and you know, I don't think they're getting closer now to feeling comfortable enough to push the big marketing button with all of the various features that are coming up shortly. And we know they're coming before September because the games that have been advertised with them are launching by September. I again kind of feel like I should be investigating the story here, but I'm engrossed in the discussion. Jem says, if all Stadia published and developed games are coming to Stadia Pro, then it's definitely better value than Xbox. Yeah, right. 100%. Yeah, you know, and again, look, I'm playing on a PlayStation Pro here. Almost certainly I'll get a PS5. I do have an Xbox, but I've never liked the interface, the HUD, what do you call it? You know, the dashboard. I've never liked it. See, that's just cheap, isn't it? So it's just a crappy animation on the water here that they've just literally painted it onto this area that is water. But look, he's walking through water and there's hardly anything animation-wise to indicate the case. I don't have the sound because I've got my headset plugged into the controller and the TV's turned down, so I don't know if there's much water sound, but I also found the walking noise was there was too much noise. When you've got headphones on, all you hear is character walking. It's annoying as hell. But you know, look, here I stand in that animation. There's no turbulence. There's no disruption in the water. There's a bit of blurring around my feet. That's cheap. That's my point. This feels like we've got some tricks with lighting and foreground stuff, mainly lighting. But beyond that, there's not much to it. I don't think it doesn't feel as finished even to me as Infamous. Yeah, I do. I think Sony, it's interesting with Sony, isn't it, Jem? Because they're like the quiet man. It's almost like they're so confident. They don't need to be brash and shouty. I mean, then people go, oh yeah, but Xbox, they've got it sorted, you know, they do these regular events and everybody, you know, and they're really good at them and everything. And then, but and PlayStation don't do anything, but when they do, it's a mic drop. Every time. There's a reason they don't. But you know, maybe I'm being a bit of a fanboy. Ultimately, for me, I'm in a very lucky position that I can afford to have most of these things if I want them. So, you know, I've got a couple of PlayStations as it happens, and I've got an Xbox, but I gave the Xbox to my daughter so she can play Sims. She's a bit of a Sims fan. Oh, hello. Am I supposed to explore the fact that you're there? Don't think so. Okay. But for me, it's, you know, what's great is that I've got, as I say, any game that comes out, if I think, oh, I wouldn't mind playing that, I can play it. And that's what it's, for me, that's how it should be. It shouldn't be about the hardware. And this is one of the Oh, we're into Mongol territory. One of the promises of cloud gaming was that it would break down that kind of dependency, the hardware dependency. But of course, what you're seeing is it becoming fractured in the same way as all of these. It's a big old Wild West, isn't it? Rushing water, loads of bonuses which I didn't read. There's a creature somewhere. Oh, it's a wild boar. Everybody knows wild boars are pretty nasty. Yeah, so I'm miles away. This is the trouble. It's not that far down to there, but I've been yabbering so much. Let's try again. Up that hill, is it, or is it that way? Which way is the wind blowing? It's this way, isn't it? Right, let's get away from these creatures. I think eventually there's one story quest where I get a bow and arrow, and that's the time when I can go hunting as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to stop and take them on with a bleeding sword. And also there's little areas that I could explore. One of my favourite, if not my favourite game of all time, certainly one of them, is Horizon Zero Dawn, which I just adore. And Guerrilla gets it on so many levels. You know, again, it's 3 or 4 years ago now since that game came out. Graphically, it's miles better than this. The mechanics and the physics are miles better than this. The story is a unique and one of the most engrossing and interesting sci-fi stories I've ever encountered in a game. So you get a bit spoiled, don't you? You end up judging everything on the basis of, and if something's come 4 years after, you sort of want it to be an improvement. PlayStation doesn't need to do anything. Nope. This is the thing. In 2 weeks until PC version of Horizon Zero Dawn. Yeah, I pre-ordered it. I loved it so much. I'm playing it again, and I played the sequel. The sequel. I don't know if you played it, Jem, but I forget the name of it now. But the DLC dropped. When the DLC came out for Horizon, it was almost as big as the original game. I mean, Guerrilla's just an amazing studio. Amazing. Was it Killzone they did originally? Great game, way ahead of its time. The hardware couldn't keep up. But yeah, no, I pre-ordered Death Stranding and I pre-ordered Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. Completed both, but I love them both, and I just wanted to experience them with the addition of the extra graphics and processing power, frames per second, and so on. It's just kind of a bit fanboyish, but why not? So yeah, got that one on order. Yeah, Spider-Man would also be amazing, wouldn't it, on PC? That's a game I bought it, I played it, I completed it, I enjoyed it, but I didn't buy into it as much as everybody else did at the time. Similarly, it just felt a little bit repetitive. Look at this animation in the water. It's terrible. Look at that. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Sucker punch. The horse is stood in the water and it might as well just be on dry land. Look, it's wandering along. There's no ripples, no water effects, nothing. What you do have is attractive reflections. I don't think it's ray tracing. I think it's just taking a JPEG of whatever's going on and layering it with some rippling to it. Because you can see there's no detail in it, it's just blockiness in the water. Yeah, it's just not clever. And it's stuff like that even if you don't notice it on a conscious level, as I'm pointing it out, and sadly anyone that's watching this that was looking forward to the game is going to be then very much cognizant of it when they're playing it, but even if you're not aware of it, it's still a subconscious thing. Something in your brain will say, there's something not quite right about this, and it feels wrong. Yeah, it's a different animation, isn't it? It's obviously hard baked into that animation. But even the horse's tail. Okay, so I've just stopped. If you slow down, look at it. It looks like its tail's made of plastic. When it runs, it looks better. And I think again, they've put more effort into the animation of this. And the field of view, it tightens up on the field of view, and that's interesting, and that looks really cool, because it looks like it's urgent, it's like, got to get there. But I think a lot of that is taken from It's got a big influence on, in fact you can see it if I go to the options, is it camera, display, they have a mode called the Kurosawa mode, named after the Kurosawa, the director. Back, so if I flick it into this mode, we're black and white with some film grain, and I think that's their big influence, that they've looked at these old Kurosawa. I think he did the Seven Samurai, which was the influence between the film The Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner, and so he's revered in Hollywood for these kind of almost Japanese westerns in some ways, and they've even got this mode built in, the Kurosawa mode. So I think things like that horse is probably taken directly from some of the directorial decisions in those films. I'll put it back on there now. Daryl, how are you? Welcome to this impromptu little PS4 gathering. I've been streaming a couple of hours now, actually. Yeah, nearly 3 hours, I think. Might be wrong. Yeah, just kind of breaking it down, the game. I tweeted last night that I was going to give my views on Generation X tonight with Clive. And, spoiler alert, it's that if I'm anything, I'm a little disappointed with it so far. I mean, I don't know if it shows you how many hours or how long you've been playing the game for. Sometimes they do, don't they? It's probably in the title screen. I don't really want to leave it. But it kind of just hasn't bitten for me yet. It feels like they've done some stuff really well, and then other stuff they borrowed from different titles, and they haven't quite implemented it that well. I think I might be at my destination. So I'm close. I've toddled off somewhere I shouldn't be just yet. So let's get back on the horse. Whistling for your horse to come. I mean, these are kind of RPG standards now, aren't they? Red Dead does it, Horizon Zero Dawn does it. I don't know that Last of Us needs to do it. Right, let's get the wind up, as they say, because there we go. The one quite nice thing, which I think is unique to this game, is the wind blows in the direction that you need to go to the next aspect of your story, the next mission or side quest. So it's kind of this direction, and there's villages and bits along the way with little, people to talk to and so. It's all the usual kind of Far Cry type stuff. To be fair, I mean, Ubisoft do this so well. I mean, those guys own that genre. Of this game. Well, this is I don't know that it's. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know that it will change hugely from this. Because, and I'll tell you why I say that, the game itself isn't designed with detail in mind. It's designed with light. It uses light like this scene here. Gorgeous. I mean, I've got HDR. I'm playing this on an LG C8. So, it was like an amazing television set, and HDR on it's fantastic. And it looks great. But everything else isn't great. The distance stuff is just plonked in. It's not. There's no great detail on the middle to far distance. And as I was just saying a second ago with Gem, there's just stuff that breaks the game, like when you go through water and there's no ripple effects and things. They could just have put a little bit more effort into it, I feel. But having said that, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, because it is a good game and there is some great stuff going on in it. It's just, was that stuff to pick up there, or was it floating? Some of the things that it does that are really cool, it's like everywhere you go there's stuff floating about, whether it's leaves or pollen or cotton or butterflies or whatever. That's nice. No, this is Sucker Punch, who did Infamous and Infamous Second Son. They're the two which I adore. I think that those two are great games, and actually they are part of the tradition of some of the early games that broke tradition in having female leads, because although Infamous was male lead with the sort of sub-character being female. In, I think it was either Second Son or the DLC, it flicks over to be the female lead. And that's I'm not stopping for these guys. I need to get to my destination. Great game. Yeah, great game. So I think they there's aspects of this, as I say, that work really well. I mean, look at this lighting. It's amazing, but there are bits that could be so much better. I just discovered some dead folk. When I get my bow and arrow, I'll be able to take out these deers. It's a much-loved mechanic of American games. Hunting and shooting. Where are we? Still heading in the wrong direction. Spin around. Oh, by the way, I haven't got audio on, but I did choose Japanese as the language, with English as the subtitles, just for authenticity, but I'll whip it back to English. There'll be a slight delay as they switch the language pack in, and back it comes. Right, let's get me horsey. Oh, look at this, Mongol ships that are out there. Here she is. Animation on the horse is just not as good as I would have liked. It looks just like a big chunky. I know that, funny enough, they show, if you watch Braveheart and those medieval films, and they show these sleek racehorse looking animals, but the truth is, battle horses, war horses were solid. They were like cart horses. They had to be, because they had to carry armour and a rider with armour, and they had to take a lot of pounding. So the game's actually correct in showing this as quite a hefty beast, because that is, this kind of cart horse look is actually more historically accurate than the race horses that you see in a lot of the films and games. They just would not have survived. They would have pounded along and got them to the battle, and then within a couple of minutes they'd have been on the floor, chopped up, ready for dog food. Oh, is that right? I didn't. Yeah, that's interesting, Daryl. I haven't looked at that, to be honest with you. Yeah, that's maybe unless you're making a joke, that would be so funny. Oh no, you're being serious. Yeah, that would be so funny. Hang on, how close am I to my destination? Where am I even? That's me there. So again, there's a thing, beachside camp. There's there's a bit of a battle and stuff. But I'm avoiding all of this at the moment because I just want to get to this next stage of the story, which I've avoided through yapping. You've got to do that, honestly. That is so ironic. I mean, how many sketches have there ever been of Japanese movies with English dubbed voices that are completely out of sequence? To have that in reverse is so funny. I'd love to think they even did that on purpose as part of the joke. That would be so good. Almost there. It's quite nice playing, actually, streaming on the PlayStation. Just kind of lounged. I'm in the lounge. I'm kind of lounged out on the old sofa, stretched out on the old sofa. Not worried about cameras and stuff. It's nice to do it. Oh, there's a little foxy. A fox den. I don't know. It pops up, makes a big thing of these fox dens, and then they don't seem to do anything. I'm just wondering whether later in the game you get points or something from it. Right, I think I have to go over this bridge, and then I've arrived at my destination. You've arrived at your destination. Right, get off your horse. Mongol destination. Well, that's no good. That means I'm going to have a bit of a... Blimey, look at these dudes. They look serious. Struth. This is where I like you want your ranged weapons, like your bow and arrow, isn't it? I wonder if I can like sneak up and stick a sword up his horse's ass. No, got myself into a battle. Run away, run away. Learn to fight another day. Well, really. I'm clearly going to have to do some fighting here. Hey, Seven. Yeah, do they? I can't remember. Yeah, they kind of just pounce around the place, don't they? Tribute to the fox. But, oh no, get out of it. No, these are too good for you. Oh, no. I got beaten up. I don't know, well, just put me up my misery power. I don't relish it. Oh, it's such a good game, RDR2. Such a good game. I get another game I completed. I lost interest when it got to the online part. It doesn't interest me. Just riding along, getting shot off your horse for no reason by some idiot. Right, okay, let me just double check that this is where I am supposed to be. Let's have a look. No, it's not. I'm not quite there yet, unless it's in that. Unless it's in. No, that's that there. Look, that's the logging base. So I've got to go, but it's behind you. So probably not even intending to fight these dudes for now. It's like any game, isn't it? You've got to progress to a certain level before you can get brash enough to go in and take on a ton of those dudes. But again, Assassin's Creed does it better. You know, fly your little eagle, your little budgie over the gaff, check out what's going down, work out what your tactics are. Yeah, it's just like a poor man's Far Cry. It's not a poor man's Far Cry, it's just not as polished. Here we are. Right, we're almost on top of where we intended to be. This little place here, look. There we go. Kenji.
That was a misunderstanding.
That was a scared sucker merchant trying to wriggle out of trouble. And Taka's counting on us.
I love the kid, but this is too dangerous. It will never work.
We'll make it work.
This the samurai?
I can't help but look at their mouths now, thank you.
Forgive me, my lord. I am Kenji, upstanding merchant, renowned sake brewer.
I'm sure there was a laundrette around the corner from here called Kenji.
That's why he's going to help us rescue my brother from Azamo Bay.
That town's a fortress.
If the Mongols took it, you'll need an army to penetrate the walls.
Or a single delivery of sake.
It'll never work.
Get your sake ready. We'll discuss the plan on the move.
Let's have a drink first.
Hey, Jorking, how's it going? Thanks for joining. I don't know that I'm going to be doing a huge amount more. Maybe another 30 minutes. I think I'm been streaming since about 5:30 this morning, I think. And it's now coming up to 8:25.
When we get close to the town, you can hide in the cot with the sake.
I literally did not read any of that. I have no idea what they just said. They love my Dars. Dars? Mongol?
You've been doing business with the enemy.
Oh, I think that's the Mongol guy speaking. In kind of pidgin Japanese. If that's such a thing. Where's that come from? Pidgin English. Oh, I did look this up once. It's got nothing to do with the bird. It's literally, I'm trying to remember what it was. It might be it might be a Latin word. Anyway, I can't remember what it was, but it definitely wasn't anything to do with the bird, and it's spelled differently. I didn't abandon my ally. What are you saying? I was reading the chat. How rude. Of course you can ask a Stadia question, always. And you will always get honest responses as well. That's another great reflection of the community. I don't think anybody is and you'll never get any hype, you know. Yeah, no, please do. I've got to return to my companion. Oh, hang on, there they go. Right, sorry companion. Okay, so I use an Ethernet cable in my PC, yep. But when I play Stadia with the mouse and keyboard, there's a lot of lag. Whereas when I use the Stadia controller, it plays smooth. I don't get that. That's interesting. So what you're saying is when you play controller on PC, you get lag. Is it, just out of interest, is it a corded keyboard and mouse, or is it wireless? Because it could be something to do with that. And that's just me being speculative, because I tend to play more on my PC Stadia these days than I do on the CCU. And I play keyboard and mouse most of the time, but I tend to play with a wired keyboard and mouse, so I don't experience that. But it may well be, if it's a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, that it may have something to do with that as a question. Corded, that is interesting. I genuinely haven't had that. But what you're saying is, when you're playing with a controller on PC, it's fine. It's just keyboard and mouse. Which game, out of interest, or is that all games? By the way, I love the fact there's almost virtually no latency playing, streaming from PlayStation. I don't know why, but it's like 2 or 3 seconds, so I virtually get to see the chat as soon as you guys type it. Yeah, more with mouse and keyboard, but I'm interested to know if it's a specific game or if it's all games, because that could well be the implementation of the keyboard and mouse in those specific games, to be fair. But the fact that you can play with a controller, and out of interest, is that any controller or just the Stadia controller? Oh wow. Honestly, I've not come across that myself, so I'm racking my brains to think. You know, the way I work is elimination, process of elimination, so you think through all the various scenarios and try to establish what could be the one. The fact is, your game itself is streaming okay. You're not getting any latency issues there, right? It's purely when you're sending a keyboard or a mouse command, excuse me, and you're finding that your character's not turning as quickly as it does if you use a controller, basically. Yeah, so I'm just trying to think. One of the things that I found was I've got my new my new internet connection coming in on Friday. It's being fitted on Friday. And where I do most of my gaming these days, and all of my streaming and all my shows, is in my garage, right, which is on the side of the house, as most people's are. And it's got a huge block wall between the house and the garage. So there's literally no Wi-Fi signal. But the problem I was having with my broadband before was I was using a separate router, which was a mesh router, to get the broadband out to the garage, but it was actually killing the internet. So I disconnected it and then ordered I switched from Virgin to BT, and I've got, I think it's about 900 megs to a gig anyway. That's coming on Friday. Similar price as well to what I was paying at Virgin, for 350 to 400. So I'm quite happy with that little deal. But what's been an issue for me is that I can't. One of the things you forget is that the controller, the Stadia controller, needs to connect directly with the router. You know, it's one of the ways that they reduce lag. So you don't actually go through a computer or the television, the local CCU. You don't go through the CCU with the controller or through the PC. It goes directly through the router, and that cuts out some of the lag. Even if it's wired, by the way, I think it's the same thing. So that then leads me to think that because you're directly connected to the router with the controller, but you're going through the PC with the keyboard and mouse, that might be part of the problem. It's not, there is a slight delay between the signal, between pressing the keyboard button, it going through the PC and then out to the data center versus the controller, which is going straight via your router. And it should only be it should be tiny amounts of time, but maybe in your case it's for some reason it's exaggerated. Just out of interest, you're playing on a PC. Is it a desktop PC or a laptop? And do you have another one in the house anywhere that you could try it on, just to see if it's actually the hardware itself that is, maybe you need to reinstall your keyboard driver, for example. It might be worth deleting the keyboard mouse drivers, restarting, and then forcing it to download the latest drivers. That might have something to do with it. So those are the kind of areas that I suspect it isn't to do with Stadia. I don't think it's... Most of these connection issues aren't, in fairness to them. They're usually local. And I suspect it's to do with the PC in this case. And if it's the Stadia controller you're using and you're not having any issues, that would suggest that's the case, because it's essentially connecting directly to your router and bypassing the PC, if that makes sense. But yeah, I would definitely try a different PC or a different laptop in the house and see if you get the same issue, because it could well be you just need to delete those drivers and reinstall them, and all's well with the world. But equally, unless it's, there's one game which obviously you have to use a keyboard for, and that's Crater. If you want to get anything, if you want to do anything other than play games in it, you need to be able to use a keyboard. But luckily, you don't need, the response time doesn't need to be too great there, because you're literally just typing, aren't you? So if there's a milliseconds delay, you're not going to notice it. But most games you're better off, or just as easily playing with the controller anyway. So if it is hardware based, then I would just go with using the Stadia controller, frankly. And on that note, I don't know, I think I'm going to call it a morning. I've got half an hour to get ready, grab some breakfast, start the business day. I'm still in the middle of this mission. Oh, crikey. It's one of these guard the cart
How long have you two known each other?
classics for this genre. I think I'll stop it, and then I'm going to get myself ready and grab a small bowl of porridge. So, sorry, Crater was a little laggy too when I played with mouse and keyboard. Yeah, well, it will be, of course it will be. If you've got an issue with the mouse and keyboard on all games, it will be the same with Crater. So, I would suggest that it is the hardware. I would delete the drivers and see if that helps you. I'd also just another thing worth thinking about as well. It's a bit obscure, but it could also be your security software that's checking for keyboard recording and that kind of stuff. There might just be a tiny amount of delay there. So it could be. I think it's definitely your PC. Check it with others just to make sure. I may be wrong, and obviously if you get it elsewhere, then that kills that theory completely. But yeah, it works with GFN. Yeah, okay. Curiouser and curiouser, said Alice. Jem's your man on the mouse stuff and what have you. Anyway, I just try everything. That's how I do it. I don't usually have the answer. I just try. I'll delete stuff. I'll reinstall stuff. I'll try different keyboard and mouse. I'll try a different machine. I'll try it without Ethernet, just with Wi-Fi. you know, try different things and try and eliminate everything. Ultimately, that will give you the answer that you seek. I just noticed the horse has got hairs on his chin. Bless him. That's quite realistic, isn't it? But anyway, look, I hope you've... thank you for joining me, firstly. And I hope that it's given you a little bit of an insight into the game. And if you've been on since I discovered that I can put a headset on and speak, you've enjoyed some of my waffling. And I may do some more Ghost. Basically, when I'm playing it on here, I may as well just stream it as well, because there's no overhead in terms of speed. I've got it on maximum, which is 1080p 60. It's most that you can do. Anyway, so you know, I'll probably, if I'm playing it on here, I'll probably stream it. I may not be able to talk, depending, because it's the old family room and all that malarkey. But certainly, I will try and respond to chats if I can. So, yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed, and I look forward to. Oh yeah, tonight, Generation X Retro Gaming Club with Clive and myself. It's that a literal hidden gem of a show. I say so myself, but I would really enjoy it if I was watching it. We have a bit of a chuckle, and we don't just talk about old games. In fact, that's probably the least of what we talk about. And we do tend to go off on tangents, and we have good fun. So, if you're free, it's 9 o'clock on BBC Two. No. It ought to be on Radio 4. It's 9 o'clock on obviously on YouTube, and it's its own channel. I think that's partly the reason people don't find it, because it is literally on its own YouTube channel. I would have preferred to have had it on one of Clive or mine so that it got more traction, but Clive was concerned about algorithms, and it's his baby, it's his IP. So I'm whatever he wants to do is fine with me. So anyway, do tune in. We will have a chuckle. I'll talk more about Ghost of Tsushima, and give my sort of little thoughts on it there. And it'll be good to see you. So have a great day, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will speak to you all anon. Take care.